Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. If you did miss the last episode, it was Charles Leclerc who won back-to-back Grand Prix. It was a very well played race from Ferrari, and they always had an answer to what was thrown at them that allowed Charles Leclerc to get the win in Azerbaijan. Our teammate Sonny Hayes, he got his first F1 podium, and maybe in a lap or two it could have been the win, but Piastri in the end, he stole the podium away from us. It was only 400ths of a second towards the line. In the end, we lost the drag race and ended up having to sit back and enjoy. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but we ended up getting a P4, which was a decent recovery drive from where we started. But we'll go into this race weekend with Max Verstappen's lead taking a massive blow. He had an engine failure in the last Grand Prix, and after not finishing, he will now lead the way by 66 points ahead of Lando Norris. We find ourselves sitting in third, 80 points behind Lando. Our teammate Sonny Hayes, P9, he's 66 points behind George Russell, and Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 70 points to McLaren. Ferrari sit third, 148 points behind, and Apex GP, we're fourth, 93 points behind Ferrari. We're going to jump straight into the R&D, and with the powertrain, we've got a major ERS upgrade with new energy store cells, and these new cells have a better thermal stability, which means we can hold more power in the ERS, and that will allow us to deploy more during the Grand Prix, which will hopefully allow us to race harder for longer against our rivals. And we'll be doing a standard development on this one, as it will get in before the Mexican Grand Prix, and with that giant long straight and generally not really too many places where you can try and build it back up, that will definitely come in handy. And we have a few upgrades on the car this weekend, which are the rear downforce, engine power, general maintenance upgrade, but unfortunately the tyre wear upgrade that I've been waiting on for a while has failed, so we're going to have to wait even longer for that one, and eventually it will make its way onto the car, and it's going to make it feel so worth it that we're going to get this tyre wear upgrade. And as for the weather forecast, it's going to be a wet qualifying, and towards the end of the Grand Prix, wet as well. So maybe running a setup more towards the wetter conditions could play here to maximise our qualifying performance. Try and hang out on the start of the Grand Prix and make up the ground towards the end. And taking a look at the larger picture now, we continue to extend our performance gap to McLaren as we both bring upgrades this weekend, but so do Red Bull and Ferrari, who close the gap to McLaren, leaving Mercedes to fall down the order. Williams makes strong ground towards Aston Martin, and it's even closer than ever between the bottom four, with Racing Bull still the slowest team on paper as we head into qualifying.
As night falls in Singapore, the track starts to warm up, and it'll be red hot by the time we find out who's on pole for tomorrow's race. Time to set the grid then. Welcome along to qualifying here in Singapore.
And, well, the weather forecast did say it was going to be wet, but those glimpses of the circuit, my God, it is so much more wetter out on track than I was expecting. The full wet's obviously going to be the tyre of a choice, but as we go out of our pit box, unfortunately, we're going to be receiving a engine penalty for the Grand Prix, so we're going to be starting a little bit further back than where we ideally would want to be. It's because we have to take a new energy store, so unfortunately, yeah, wherever we qualify, it's going to be 5 positions back from there, and we're going to just have to try and put our head down and make up the pace in the Grand Prix. But we'll fast forward now to the end of our first flying lap here, a little wide through the last corner there, and trying to stay away from any painted lines, and that's going to put us in P10, but we're over 2 seconds, nearly 3 seconds off the pace, so we need to find a lot of time. 2.5 seconds found, a big moment on the exit, and that's going to put us up to P15. That drops us, though, immediately to P19 as the faster lap times start coming through. The track's slowly getting better. You can see a little bit more of a dry line starting to pop through, but by the end of the session, it's going to be Lewis Hamilton fastest by 10th to Lando Norris. Leclerc's in 3rd, 3/10 behind. Our teammate Sonny Hayes is in 14th, 1.5 seconds behind. Myself in 15th, only 300ths behind Sonny, proving that we are both just struggling equally in these conditions. And knocked out in qualifying one is Jack Doohan by 0.2 of a second, and then it's Oliver Behrman, Pierre Gasly make it both the Alpines out, Gabriel Bortoleto, and then the 2 Racing Bulls of Hadjar ahead of Liam Lawson. And now immediately back into qualifying 2. Our first flying lap, this is on a set of used tyres, so we did use both of our tyres available in the first session. That final flying lap there was actually used on a brand new set And so this final lap here is on that brand new set that we used on our final flying lap. Sorry, getting all these laps confused that we're doing, trying to keep track of where we all are. But either way, by the time we get to qualifying 2, we do make it through in P9. So just into qualifying 3. Norris is fastest ahead of Hamilton. There's Tsunoda in 3rd, myself in 9th, and knockdown qualifying 2. The championship leader, Max Verstappen, by 10th. Our teammate, Sonny Hayes, as well. Antonelli and the 2 Williams are out. And George Russell also makes both the Mercedes out in qualifying. So plenty of big names not making it through into this final session. And we're going to go for a little bit of a more different approach to this final session. We did a first flying lap very late into the session, so that we can try and optimize the track conditions. And so we'll do back-to-back flying laps. You can see they're only just having enough ERS to finish off that second lap, and Leclerc continues his fine form of recent with another pole position, and this is by 2/10 ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Lando Norris will line up in 3rd. He's only 4 thousandths off the front row, and myself in 9th, a whopping 2.2 seconds off.
Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. And here's our track, 4.94 kilometres long, and overtaking chances into the first corner, into turn 14 at the end of the Esplanade, and now into turn 16 in the newly reprofiled sector that we first ran on in 2023. Still though, it's punishing and tough on the brakes, and the heat and humidity will take an effect on our drivers. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Yuki Tsunoda completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Hülkenberg, Stroll, Ocon, Hayes, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Albon, Sainz, Oscar Piastri, and Russell, Doohan, Behrman, Pierre Gasly, Pearce, Bortoletto, Hadjar, Lawson, and Max Verstappen completes the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And alongside me for this afternoon's commentary, Naomi Schiff. Good afternoon, Gnomes. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race. But I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
All right, let's have a quick radio check, please. Radio check. We're at the back, but give it 100% and we can still come away with a decent result. I believe in you. Come on.
Well, I thought that it was only going to be 5 places we'll lose, but unfortunately it's going to be 10, so that's just made our afternoon much more difficult. We're going to stick with the default strategy, so we're going to actually try and only be on the hards, because I reckon the rain's going to arrive before we need to jump onto the mediums. So hopefully it is going to be a one-stop of hards onto the wet tyres as we now line up on the grid. It is 5 red lights, and we are away for the Singapore Grand Prix here in Season 1 of this series. It's a really good start from Oliver Behrman, but an even better start from ourselves as we launch it down the inside to make it 3 wide, and we awkwardly have to try and navigate our way. There's end plates flying everywhere in front of us, and we have to take avoiding action because I reckon that's a Mercedes that was down our inside. Now, I didn't want to get any floor damage immediately off the start of the Grand Prix. Looking ahead, it is Charles Leclerc who has bolted ahead. He's already got over a second lead by the time we get down to turn 4. Yuki Tsunoda is battling it out with Lando Norris, but he'll take that second position away. Hamilton gets himself up into 4th position. On board with ourselves, it's very gingerly as everyone is still trying to find their own piece of real estate around this Marina Bay street circuit, and we send it down the inside of Oscar Piastri, taking advantage of him being put offline from these two in front of us, battling. It's Carlos Sainz versus Kimi Antonelli, and that is going to be for 11th and 12th position. So outside of the points, but we've made such a good start from 18th to 13th already before the end of the first lap. But we're kind of stuck now through this bridge section, as it is a one lane part of this circuit, but we go around the outside, proving we got so much grip on these hard compound tires, and we dance it around the outside of Kimi Antonelli. That gets us now up into 12th as we now jump onto lap 2. So that's 6 positions gained on the opening lap, so it's really a really good start from ourselves. But for our teammate now, he's looking to try and get himself up into 7th position. He'll have to dispatch Nico Hulkenberg in at the Sauber. He tries to do it at turn 1, but with how flowing turns 1, 2, and 3 are, he can't get the move done until he reaches turn 4, which is just the part of the nature of this circuit. But he does get the move done, and that's now him up into 7th position. We're now looking to see if we can't find our way past Carlos Sainz. We're going to have to get creative here, and because of that overtake, that's kind of bunched up this little pack here, and it's being led by our teammate Sonny Hayes, who is in 7th position. We get down to the inside of Carlos Sainz, catch him napping a little bit, just as staying put behind his teammate Alex Albon. That puts us now to P11, and so we're just on the outskirts of the points, and that points paying position is here by Alex Albon. He gets all sideways on the exit, so is he going to be now vulnerable to ourselves? We're deploying battery, we swing it to his outside. Are we going to be able to make the move stick? Is this going to be us now up into the points before the end of the second lap from 18th on the grid? And yes, it is a very, very good move from ourselves, taking advantage of him maybe looking a little bit vulnerable after getting the power slide out of the exit there of the corner. And now we can focus on trying to get further up the points here. We go down the inside of Esteban Ocon. That's now P9. We are absolutely flying through the field, and as we should, because we've got the fastest car on the grid on paper, and we're definitely proving that's the case, because you don't generally see the AI able to make the changes through the field like this, switching it back, making the moves, and getting themselves into the points. We get our first objective of the Grand Prix, and it's to achieve a fuel load below 40 kilos. So we did slightly overfuel it because I wasn't too sure how the weather was going to be playing a part in this Grand Prix, as Lando Norris, he nearly loses it behind Yuki Tsunoda. Is this going to be a change for the lead around the outside? It will be a beautiful move if you can make it stick. It will give him the inside line, and he squeezes Yuki out on the exit, and that is Lando now up into the lead of the Grand Prix. And as I was saying, we've slightly overfueled, so Mark may be now saying that we probably have overestimated it and we didn't need as much fuel, so we're trying to burn it off, but we don't have long to try and burn it off. He wants us to get it done while we're in the clean air, but unfortunately that clean air has already evaporated, because with Stroll and Hamilton battling it out now, we've caught up to the back of them. But who has joined us as well? It's our teammate Sonny Hayes. He's sitting there in P7. We're right up behind our teammate, and so it is a Ferrari versus Aston Martin versus 2 Apex GP cars. So it is all on to try and get this P5 position now away from the Canadian, who had a pretty good qualifying. Lance Stroll's pretty well known for being good in the wet conditions. You can see there us tucked up right behind our teammate, and are we now close enough to try and get ourselves a run using the DRS? It will be a late braking move, and we go down the inside, and that is us now up into 7th position. So our recovery drive is well and truly on. It's only lap 8 of the Grand Prix. We can now set our eyes onto Lewis Hamilton in that Ferrari, and you can just see how much pace we do have on these hard compound tires. We're a little bit gingerly through this corner here though. I've always struggled on even previous F1 games. There's only a couple of corners that I struggle on in this game, and that is definitely one of them here in Singapore. So I'm always a little bit more cautious through there, because I tend to find if I do try and take it a little bit faster to try and keep up with the AI, I end up putting myself in the wall. So I still haven't quite mastered that one out yet, but fast forwarding a little bit of time now, we caught up to the back of Hamilton, and we go down the inside. He kind of outbrakes us a little bit at first, so I then lift off my brake pedal just a tad to allow the car to roll into the corner to try and gain control of the corner, make it my apex, and that is us through on Hamilton. And just as quickly now around the outside of Stroll, and that is us up into P5. So it's taken us 10 laps to go from 18th to 5th. It has been an absolute brilliant opening stint from us so far. And we're now going to take a look at the order now that things have calmed down just a tiny bit. So Norris leads the way ahead of Yuki Tsunoda and Charles Leclerc on the podium. Then it's Fernando Alonso, myself in 5th position, Stroll, Hamilton, our teammate Hayes in 8th, Nico Hulkenberg and Esteban Ocon rounds out the points. Then it's Alex Albon, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Kimi Antonelli, Jack Doohan, Oliver Behrman, George Russell all the way down to 17th, not normally where you would see him, Pierre Gasly, and championship leader Max Verstappen hasn't been able to recover as quickly as probably one would have thought. He's still down in P19, then it's Gabriel Bortoleto, then the two racing bulls of Liam Lawson ahead of Isaac Hadjar, who sits in P22. But back on board with ourselves, we're going to receive our next objective of the Grand Prix, which is to achieve a faster lap time of a 1:39 flat. And is that because that we've got the pace to be able to pull away from Stroll, who's kind of got a bit of a train now hanging out behind him. But we're losing track of Fernando Alonso. His gap is about 8 seconds ahead. And as you can see now, later into the lap, the rain has started falling. We've got a few droplets now on our visor cam. We've got a few drops going down the chassis of the car, and we've now been warned from Mark that the forecast is not looking good for the future of this Grand Prix as we do achieve our fast lap time. Unfortunately though, we're still losing touch of Fernando Alonso. That gap now out to 9 seconds. As for the last points paying position, it's Alex Albon versus Oscar Piastri. It's a tie versus an Australian. Who is going to be able to make it this one stick? And it looks like it's going to be Oscar Piastri on those medium compound tyres, going to get the better traction there, and he will get himself now into the points. Further up the field though, Charles Leclerc, he is looking all over the back of Yuki Tsunoda. Is he able to get himself up into second to try and chase down Lando Norris? Could he make it possibly here today in Singapore? 3 Grand Prix victory in a row. The only multiple, well, back-to-back race winners we've seen is Charles Leclerc, who's on a two-peat. And then it is Max Verstappen, who won 7 races in a row earlier into the season. And you'll see here that we've received a new strategy to jump onto the intermediate tyres on lap 16. And that is absolutely now. And Lando Norris is taking that opportunity as well. The rainfall starting to get heavier. You can see the drops on your screen falling. And the track is visibly getting a bit more damp. Norris is in. Leclerc is in. Is Tsunoda in? Tsunoda is in. Fernando Alonso, is he going to pull it in? He is going to be in, and so will we. We will round this corner, the one that I said I've struggled on, and now in the wet even more so. And we're going to pull it in for our pit stop and try and get it slowed down. And so this is where my strategy was coming into play. I said on the grid earlier that we're going to try and make these hard tyres last when the rain fell. So we've made these hard tyres go to lap 16. The rain has fallen. And now we can jump onto the intermediates and hopefully try and go to the end. If it doesn't get like monsoonal rains, and we may have to jump onto the wet weather tyres, but we'll try and make the intermediates work and see what we can do from here. We've got a fair distance left of the Grand Prix to go, so anything can still happen. And fast forwarding to lap 21 now, we're going to get our next objective, and we have to keep Stroll behind us. But you can see that we are struggling so much in these wet weather conditions. We've now gone 20 seconds down the road from Fernando Alonso. That is how much better these AI drivers are in these conditions, and you can see the train that's currently behind us. So we're really struggling in these conditions. One man who's not struggling though, Lando Norris, he's actually extended his lead into the wet weather conditions. It's now 3.5 seconds between him and Charles Leclerc, and this is going to be a very big swing in the points for Lando Norris. He's going to receive 25 points. Max Verstappen's not in the points, but he gets Taylor on the exit, and he's in the fence. Lando Norris, this could have been a massive swing in the championship, but instead he finds himself in the wall, and that's enough for the red flag to come out here in Singapore. So now this changes a lot. That 20-second deficit I had to Fernando Alonso is gone. We've got an opportunity here to make up some ground and make up a couple of extra positions. And yeah, Norris just lost it on the exit, tried to keep his foot in it, and ultimately put himself in the fence. And it's going to be the wet weather tyres that we're now going to jump on to the end of the Grand Prix, which is actually kind of works out well because it was for sure beyond intermediate tyres. As far as track conditions was looking, I reckon the wets are definitely the better tyre to be on, as now we get ready to go to 5 red lights, and we're off for the second time here in Singapore. It's a very good start compared to Fernando Alonso, and we're going to look to try and go down the inside. This will put us onto the podium. This is going to be an absolute wicked drive from us if we can make a podium work. We do get it up into P3 without it being a little bit messy there, losing the back end going into turn 1. Ahead though, it is a battle for the lead. Tsunoda, he's going to take the lead away from Charles Leclerc. Leclerc will have to slide into P2. We're in 3rd position, and we've got Fernando Alonso all over the rear of us, looking to try and get that podium position back off of us. And then it's Oscar Piastri into 5th, Stroll, Albon, Hamilton, our teammate Sonny Hayes, he's in P9 still, Nico Hulkenberg, currently rounds out the points paying position, but he's under attack from Kimi Antonelli, who goes down his inside, but Hulkenberg, he will get the better exit, and he will hold on to that final points paying position. So this red flag has actually proved to be very, very good for us, because we've now got ourselves from what looks like a sealed deal of a P5 now up onto a podium, as our teammate Hayes has got an engine failure. So what could have been a very strong double points finisher for our team has now turned into one of us and not finishing with an engine failure. And that's Hayes' second engine failure this season. We are yet to receive one, so I know it's coming eventually. But so far, it looks like Hayes has been constantly drawing the short straw. And I thought there may have been a little bit of contact, and there it is. A little bit of contact there with Max Verstappen trying to take avoiding action. And then I don't know if you saw, but it was Oliver Behrman who got held up massively. So he's lost touch now to the rest of the field, having to take avoiding action of Hayes trying to get the car into a safe space. He wasn't able to get it into the pit lane because the rest of the field was going by. So he had to pull it off the circuit. And going on to the final lap here, this is how much we've struggled. It was a 5-6 lap dash to the end from the red flag. Tsunoda and Leclerc have pulled out 23 seconds over myself in that time. I am in struggle town, and then we've got the entire field behind us. But Yuki Tsunoda will become an F1 winner here in Singapore. He survives the streets of Marina Bay, and he'll claim the win for Red Bull. Charles Leclerc across the line in second, and the gap only extended on that final lap. We're going to hold on to a third position, though, with the pressure from Fernando Alonso, with the pressure from Oscar Piastri. We withstand it, and we're going to come home with a podium. It's going to be a podium from 18th on the grid. We got very lucky, I won't deny that, but we had to make the move stick in the opening stint, and that is very, very well rewarded, going for those moves, making them stick, and going for the aggression. It feels so worth it, but yeah, very lucky podium.
Yuki Tsunoda takes the checkered flag and wins.
What a wonderful drive to see them come from far down the grid to win the race. Those days are the ones that throw the biggest challenges at you, and to stick out and win it is an incredible job.
Well, it's been a long wait for many of our drivers, but the wait is always worth it. Bring them out to the awaiting crowd. It's time for our podium celebrations. What a victory for a very popular young man. Yuki Tsunoda takes the top step today.
It's been an absolute chaotic Singapore Grand Prix this year, and Yuki Tsunoda survived it to claim his first career victory. We joined Charles Leclerc up on the podium with Tsunoda to celebrate, and yeah, that was a guaranteed P5 for ourselves until that red flag. Massive in the championship, though, with Lando Norris not able to score any points against Max Verstappen, who didn't end up finishing inside the top 10. We'll take a look at that top 10. So it's Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hulkenberg, and Kimi Antonelli. And the championship leader, Verstappen, yeah, despite the chaos, he was not able to capitalise and recover into the points. But just as importantly, Norris did not finish the Grand Prix, so there's no point gains between the top two in the championship. And Hayes was a non-finisher with Lando Norris. And we'll take a look at the championship now. Max Verstappen's lead stays the same at 66 points to Lando. Then myself in third, 65 points behind. And then it's Hayes in ninth. He's 66 points behind George Russell. Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 85 points to McLaren. Then it's Ferrari in third, 66 points behind McLaren. In Apex GP, we sit in fourth, 100 points behind Ferrari. In our driver ratings, our experience, racecraft, and pace gain points with the awareness to level 85, but our focus takes a small hit for an overall rating of 86. And our driver recognition as well, despite our podium and Hayes' DNF, we lose recognition to our teammate as it drops to 58%. And that is going to be all for this episode. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you for the next episode where we go to Austin, Texas for the United States Grand Prix. I'll see you there.